Hey everybody. A few quick notes before starting today's episode. First off, I wanted to read a couple of 5-star reviews submitted on iTunes. The first one is titled Really Cool Idea and Format, and it's written by NK666. NK666 says, "It's like an integration session podcast, simple and intimate. I would definitely recommend this podcast if psychedelics or psychedelic integration interests you." The second review, titled Thank You, Ironically Addictive to Listen To, was written by Loosey Goosey 65. Loosey Goosey 65 says, "I am savoring the last few episodes. I came across this podcast a few weeks ago. I love the story format, the back and forth between guests, and feel the stories are intriguing, real, and relatable, like a verbal memoir of all the juicy tidbits of life's trials and tribulations. These stories have forced me to look at my own drug use, its history and origins, how I might catalog my own experiences and stories, and also how I will move into the future with a new perspective. Thank you for interviewing honest and insightful individuals and for producing such a real and engaging podcast. Looking forward to more stories." Thank you so much, NK666 and Loosey Goosey 65. I really appreciate it. The last and final thing on the list is I have been given the chance to reduce the price of the Psychotropic t-shirt. It is now at $20. So if you're interested in obtaining some Psychotropic memorabilia, be sure to visit psychotropicpodcast.com and click on the Get a T-shirt tab. As soon as you place your order, I'll have it shipped out within 24 hours. Having said all that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I definitely did. Thanks for listening, everybody. Could you describe yourself for somebody who hasn't met you before?
Well, obviously, I am a dog owner. Excuse me just a second. Let me just tell him to be quiet. So, I am 41 years old. I'm a homeowner. I have 2 dogs. I have a master's degree in library science, and I have spent the majority of my career working in the nonprofit sector. I am a Christian. I am a lover of live music of all types. I just got back from seeing a German heavy metal band not too long ago. I'm an introvert, but I'm a people person. So I'm an introvert as in I like to spend most of my time alone or with one friend. But when I have to turn on the charm, I can do that.
Psychotropic presents Louise. What was it like growing up for you?
I had a great life growing up. My parents were older when they had me, and I have a brother who's much older than I am. And so I was raised in a Christian home that my dad was a scientist. And so I like to think that I was raised with a good balance because my mom was a Sunday school teacher and my dad was a scientist. And so we, around the dinner table frequently had very interesting conversations that ranged the gamut. But I would say in short terms, I probably had a beaver cleaver type life. I never questioned whether or not my family loved and adored me. I was given anything and everything I wanted. Hopefully I wasn't spoiled. I don't think I was a brat about it, but I just had a great life. I still think I've always had a great life, but I am thankful for the way that I was raised and what they instilled in me, which I don't know if a lot of people are this fortunate that I am.
How did these beliefs and the way that you were raised, how did that translate into your early adult life? Like, say, your late teens, 20s, early 30s?
Well, this is going to sound really boring to you, but I was a square. I think I'm still a square. Maybe once in my life I broke curfew. I mean, I just never, I had a group of friends that were all straight edge and they were punk rockers and they looked funny, but we were all just good kids that did our homework and abided by our parents' curfews. And even going into college, it just never, I think because I always felt trusted and loved by my family, that I never felt like I had to go wild or go crazy. And I knew that I could tell them if I had done something that I wasn't proud of. I could tell them and there would be some repercussions, but they would still love me and they would still forgive me. And so college was awesome because that was my first opportunity to really go out every night and see live music. And I also had the opportunity to live in China while I was in college. And from there, that opportunity then led to, after college, I lived in London and spent time in India and in Hong Kong.
Where were drugs in all this? Were you exposed to anything? Were you drinking, smoking?
No, I wasn't. I remember I tried a cigarette when I was a teenager one time, and it made me feel physically terrible. But I immediately reported back to my parents the next day and confessed that I had tried a Marlboro, and I just never was. I was never around any of it. I mean, my parents drank. And so when I was 21, I was, ready to get into craft beer and whatnot. But I never saw drugs of any kind in high school. And I saw maybe some marijuana a couple of times in college. I think in my 30s, I saw cocaine once. But I just was never really around it. And I will pause here to say that, I guess, sort of the funny side of this is that I discovered my favorite band at the age of 9, who is Pink Floyd, and did not realize that while I was devoting my life to loving and learning everything I could about Pink Floyd, and at the same time, straight edge or drug and alcohol free, I had no idea that there was this whole culture of people out there who thought Pink Floyd was what you listen to when you get high. It never crossed my mind that they were associated with drugs until somebody said something to me, I think when I was in my late 30s or maybe shortly around the time I turned 40. I remember somebody saying, are you kidding me? Pink Floyd is your favorite band and you've never smoked weed. I was like, no, I didn't know that I was supposed to do that to listen to them. So you can say, it is fair to say that my love for Pink Floyd is genuine and pure and deep, because it was not fueled by anything for the first 39 years of my life.
So that's really funny that you mentioned that, and there was an absence of drug use while you were enjoying this iconic band that to some people are synonymous with psychedelics.
And I remember, I have vivid memories, obviously, because I was fully present, but I remember the first time I heard Pink Floyd. I remember the first album I got. I remember, when I was a freshman or when I was a sophomore in high school, I got to see Pink Floyd on the Division Bell tour, and that was their last, as it turned out to be their last tour. And my parents were supportive of my love of Pink Floyd. Okay, so this adds another funny aspect to this. I came home from school one day, and my brother had moved out, and I was in high school, and I came home from school one day, and my mom had converted my brother's bedroom into my Pink Floyd room. And she had, secretly behind my back, made throw pillows out of Pink Floyd t-shirts and bought this big Pink Floyd wall hanging and hung it on the wall and framed pictures of the guys and hung them on the. And I'm telling you what, when you walked in this room, it was everything in there was black and Pink Floyd. And this was my Bible teacher mom. So it just never occurred to any of us. I don't think my parents, because of their age, they missed that whole section of culture, and they had no idea Pink Floyd was a drug band either.
I'm not sure if your substance or your lack of substance use was a direct result of your upbringing, because I do feel like there are a lot of people that they are raised in well-to-do families and they're raised by loving parents, but somehow they still find their way into substance use, marijuana and psychedelics, amphetamine, whatever it may be. But you somehow just seem to like seep through that filter.
I did. I remember being at a party one time in college and thinking, I don't like this scene. I don't like this party scene. I prefer to just either be by myself or with one friend or, a very small group. And I didn't like it. And I remember like seeing some type of weird oil lamp looking thing that people were passing around. And I knew that meant I should leave the party because everybody else knew what this weird lamp looking thing was, but me. As it turned out later, it was a bong, but I didn't know. I'd never seen one. So I just, but yeah, that is it. It somehow I seeped right through that whole piece of our culture. Just never was around it. Never even occurred to me to get into it.
So what did your social life look like through your 20s and 30s?
My social life in my 20s and 30s, you're going to love this. I was in the biker world.
What?
All of my friends in my 20s and 30s, all of my friends were older biker dudes, and and during this time, I also worked for Harley Davidson. And yes, that was my social life in my 20s and 30s. It was all about riding on Harleys. And I lived in Daytona Beach a couple of times, simply for the fact that, there's a wonderful biker scene there in Daytona. And then I lived in other parts of Florida and then moved on to North Carolina, where there's also a good biker community. And I attended a biker church in North Carolina. So this, to me, was just the greatest thing ever, because you're combining two things that I really love, God and Harleys, and bringing it all together on Sundays. And they would take classic rock songs and put traditional hymn lyrics to classic rock music. So bikers who all know Sweet Home Alabama, you already know the tune of it, could easily sing Amazing Grace, but to the tune of Sweet Home Alabama. And so during that time, 20s and 30s, biker world, and also I owned a clothing store for a couple of years, worked for Harley Davidson for a couple of years, and then got a master's degree in library science and became a town librarian in North Carolina for a public library in North Carolina.
Was there ever an interest in substance use?
Well, I don't think, I was never attracted to marijuana. I thought whenever I was around it, it was smelly. And so I was never attracted to that. And nothing else lined up for me. I used to say that if I was ever going to do drugs, I wanted to hallucinate. I wanted to see stuff. But I only knew about LSD, and I knew that LSD required a lot of time. And I thought, I just don't have that kind of time. Who has 18 hours to spare to, hallucinate and do acid? So it just never worked out. And I guess I wasn't really that committed to figuring out what I should do or when, because I just went on with my life and never really gave it much consideration until after I turned 40.
So what was the first substance you tried?
After I turned 40, I was telling my boyfriend, the bear, that, this little speech about how if I ever do drugs, I want to hallucinate. I want to see stuff. And I don't think I like this idea of LSD because it's man-made. I'm weird about, I don't know. I don't think I want to do that. And he said, well, we could do mushrooms. And I didn't know anything about mushrooms. I had no idea what they were or anything. And so he described mushrooms to me. And I thought, well, this sounds really cool because they're natural and I could possibly see stuff, and the commitment is only about 4 hours. So you could still get a good night's sleep and go on with your weekend or whatever. So I committed to, I right there on the spot said, all right, I'm 40. I'm ready to do this. Get the mushrooms. Let's do that. And I told a couple of my good friends that I was gonna jump in and do mushrooms, and everybody advised that I should try marijuana first. So one night the bear and I tried to smoke a little pot, and he got stoned and I didn't. And nothing happened. And he taught me how to do the inhale thing, and I counted to 2 Mississippi. I did all the steps and did the cough and got the sore throat, the whole 9 yards, and nothing happened. So, and I was really disappointed because I had put on my Pink Floyd dress and we took a selfie, and I was like, here I am trying marijuana for the first time, and nothing. So after that night, I said, I'm not messing around with this marijuana stuff anymore. Let's just do the mushrooms, because that was really all I was interested in, was possibly seeing stuff.
Why? Why did you want to see stuff?
I think because I always had a vivid imagination as a child. And there was always a part of me that believed when I left my bedroom that my teddy bears were hanging out. And I believe that 2 of my teddy bears were boyfriend and girlfriend. And so, it just always, Alice in Wonderland was my favorite book. Anything, Lewis Carroll, anything. And I always thought, if I was going to do drugs, and the older I got, and especially into my 30s and then 40, I thought, okay, I've waited this long. I might as well make it worth it. Like, why would you wait 40 years just to puff on a joint? Let's go for it. So, but that's really what it was for me, was, will I end up in Wonderland? Will I get to see the singing flowers? And I did.
You wanted to experience something that was super novel. There was probably this idea of elation associated with that novelty. Would I be accurate in saying that?
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to live in the world that I had read about.
Okay. So your boyfriend, the bear,
yes,
he gets a hold of these mushrooms, right?
Yes, and it was so wonderful how he guided me into, just even leading up to acquiring the mushrooms. He immediately, as soon as when I said, okay, I'm gonna do the mushrooms, get them, he said, all right, you need to start watching Paul Stamets videos and listening to Paul Stamets. I want you to read the How to Change Your Mind book by Michael Pollan. And so the bear started, I think because he knew, since I'm a librarian, I'm naturally drawn to do research about things. And so he started providing me with resources that I could learn about how it works, what it is, where they come from, and what the benefits are of different types of mushrooms. And so then on the day that was officially Mushroom Day, and I don't think this was planned on purpose, but we had just a really good, simple, easy day. And we went, some of his friends were having a cookout, and we went to that, and he has the nicest group of friends, and his friends love each other and care about each other, and I had never met any of them, and they were all hugging me and being so sweet and so kind. And throughout the day, as we were making our rounds and doing things, we were listening to excerpts of Michael Pollan's book. And so it just all kind of came together. And then eventually we got back to my house, and it was time to go to space. And so we ate the mushrooms, and it just never, for some reason, and I attribute a lot of this to the bear, I never felt nervous, scared. I never doubted it. I never questioned it. I had no second thought. It was just like, here they are. eat them. And probably it has a lot to do with all of the research and prep work that had been done in advance. But
yeah, I think that was really intelligent of him to kind of suggest that you should do your research. You know, I think that there's potential issues with that, but I think that it also, at least the stuff that he was, I guess, throwing your way, was setting you up for something positive more than something negative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had he ever taken mushrooms before?
He had. I don't know how much experience he had with them, and I meant to ask him that before you and I talked, and I forgot. But he had experienced mushrooms, and I think that was how he knew to suggest mushrooms to me when I made that comment about, well, if I do drugs, I want to see stuff, but I don't have the kind of time to take LSD that it requires. And so he just knew right away that this would be the option. This would be the thing to do.
How much did you eat? Or did you make a tea out of it, or just chew them down?
We always ate them. He has a little scale and measures them out, and then he cuts everything in half. So we're eating exactly the same thing. So one mushroom cut in half, and I don't know, somewhere he has a log of all of our measurements. How much we ate. I don't know how much we ate that first time, but was it a gram and a half maybe? Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know that. I don't have the answers to that.
No, that's totally fine. If you had a good experience, I mean, you got the right dose, I think. So what did it taste like to you?
Garbage. They taste terrible. Thankfully, we had peanut M&Ms. And so if you chew your mushrooms while eating peanut M&Ms, it's not as bad. One thing that definitely happens every time for me is nausea. And sometimes that really gets in the way of enjoying the trip. But I found some anti-nausea medication. And so I just take that and it really helps a lot. But yeah, they did not taste good. That first time, because I had never tried anything like that before, I thought, what in the world, what kind of foul, rotten food are we eating? But small price to pay.
Yeah. So what was the come up like? What did you guys do during the come up? What was that trip like? Just basically describe it in as much detail as you can remember.
The first trip was one of the best nights of my life. We were here at my house, and of course, the bear suggested right away that we listen to my favorite band, Pink Floyd, and I noticed a few things, on that first trip. First of all, everything was so beautiful, and my house is very small, and I just loved everything. My pink walls were fantastic. I have a flower painting on one wall, and those flowers started spinning like pinwheels, and it was just absolutely gorgeous. Of course, the music had a different sound to it. I can't describe it. I still can't believe that I listened to Pink Floyd my entire life, and you would think by now I can't hear anything new or different, And it was like completely the first time ever that I had heard Dark Side of the Moon. And consequently, just a side note, consequently, as the bear and I continued to do mushrooms over the weeks and months, we listened to, I think he liked to say, we listened to one of 3 albums 3 times every Saturday. So we would listen to Animals or Wish You Were Here or Dark Side of the Moon. And we would listen to, let's say, Animals all the way through. And then I would say, gosh, that sounded so good. Could we listen to that again? And so the bear indulged me, and we would listen to the same album 3 times in a row because, at different parts of your trip, you're hearing different things, or it's affecting you in different ways. And I just could not get over it. I just could not believe how different and how spectacular Roger and the guys, Pink Floyd, sounded through the mushrooms in various stages of the trip. So back to that first night, the music completely sounded new and different, and it brought me back to my childhood experience of hearing Dark Side of the Moon for the first time as a 10-year-old. And it was so amazing. And then, of course, just the animation of objects. Now, so a lot of people have told me that it's not common to hallucinate intensely on mushrooms, but I'm one of the lucky few that gets to have major hallucinations, and it's been wonderful. And so that first night, I watched a tiny carnival in my backyard, and the bear had a map of the London Underground subway system on his face, and the flowers were spinning like pinwheels, and everything just came to life. And I looked around and I realized everything was breathing and everything served its purpose in life. And the bear told me later that I even thanked the toothbrush for its service. So it really, that very first experience was so fantastic. I wish that there was some way I had a video of it. And I know I kept saying to him, I can't believe my eyes, because here is this little carnival happening in my backyard. I could not believe my eyes. And he would say, well, it's not really in front of your eye. And he was trying to explain it to me, but I was just so far gone that I just could not believe my eyes. And at one point, I asked him if having a runny nose was part of the trip. And he said, no, but you've had tears streaming down your face for the last 3 hours. And so that's probably why you have a runny nose. And I think I just had tears because of the joy and the beauty in everything, in my little house and in my little backyard. And it was just, well, obviously it was an amazing journey because I insisted on doing it again and again and again and again and again.
Aside from the visual aspect of it, the visual beauty that you were experiencing, was there anything else that made that situation or those situations more beautiful? Like you had mentioned that Pink Floyd sounded differently. Were there thoughts that were occurring in your head that were different than what normally occurs when you listen to somebody like Pink Floyd?
Oh, yes. Excuse me, I need to clear my throat. So yes, the music sounded differently, and the thoughts changed. Definitely the thoughts while on mushrooms, everything in my mind changed from the way that my mind operates at the office. But one thing that I think, if I could share with you an experience that happened on another journey, on another trip, that really affected my life beyond the trip.
Yeah, please.
So we went to this little cabin, and don't ask me how or why we had it, but we had a styrofoam boat. And we sat in the styrofoam boat in the grass because the two of us could not float the boat in the pond. But we sat in a styrofoam boat in the grass at this cabin and watched the stars. And we were listening to Wish You Were Here. And I saw and felt, I can't even talk about it without crying. I saw my life, my life history of the people that have loved me. And I saw, it was almost like watching a video montage. So I was watching it, but at the same time I was feeling it like in all over again in my heart, and maybe even feeling it truly for the first time. But this video montage went from, the time I was an infant and the love that I was receiving from my family, to my childhood and the little old ladies at my church who would tell me that they loved me and would tell me that they were praying for me. But for some reason, you acknowledge it at the time when somebody says that to you, but I felt it so strongly in this moment. And it just continued on like this all the way through my life. And I saw faces of people and that had loved me over the years and prayed for me and cared for me and encouraged me. And feeling that, seeing your entire life history go before you like that, and through the lens of the love that other people have had, it changed my life. It was so beautiful, and I was so grateful for that experience. This is really, I would say, more so than the fun of listening to Pink Floyd and the fun of hallucinating and watching tiny carnivals and all of that. It was these moments and these types of experiences that have really shaped me and affected me far beyond the trip itself.
I'm sure that you have ruminated before having taken mushrooms about your relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow this experience seemed to hit you in a certain way. It kind of sounds like it hit you in a way that it hadn't before, maybe harder.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like in real life, we have memories, and we remember people, and we remember things that people said or did for us. But in this particular moment, I was feeling it and experiencing it all at once and all over again. And it was just this, I don't want to say overpowering, but it was this all-encompassing feeling of love from all of these people. And a lot of them didn't know each other because they were at different points in my life. But I saw faces of people that had only been in my life for a brief period of time. But they were still in this montage of faces of people who had loved and cared for me over the years. And I was so grateful for that because I truly felt it. And I think that experience led me to afterwards have so much more gratitude in the day-to-day life for the people that are in my life now, and were in my life then, but now I think, okay, these are the faces that are going to be in the next video montage. And I'm so grateful for this. I'm so grateful. And I think if there was a way for more people to experience this, to feel, to truly feel, and to be absorbed by the love that they have been given, that our world would be a better place.
I definitely agree with that. I think that you definitely had, it sounds like you had a really profound experience. It was also a really special one. What you experienced sounds really good. I do worry that, like, there's also people that, they take mushrooms and they end up having a bad experience, So I'm hesitant to say that this is what a person will achieve if they try something like this. But it's something that it is possible if you're of a certain mindset. And to be honest, it kind of sounds like you had cultivated yourself throughout your life in kind of this healthy, what a lot of people would call straight edge sort of a way. But it allowed you to, I don't know. I'm making huge leaps and generalizations. In the end, it sounded... No,
you're right.
Yeah, it sounded like you had a pretty good life and you were in a pretty good mindset and you were surrounded by people that did care about you. The bear, he actively provided you with information that was going to benefit you in preparing for your trip. You guys had a really good day, and then you find yourself in the throes of this moment, and I'm assuming that he was there with you. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
So you had this person that you knew was caring about you, and you're experiencing this, and they're across from you or next to you, and what a beautiful moment.
Yeah, and I will say, just for clarification, the styrofoam boat moment with the video montage was a different trip. It was months later. But along the way, over the months and weeks and months that we were regularly taking mushrooms, there were times that the trip was not glorious. I mean, there were times where I did not feel like I was dancing through Wonderland and, feeling the love. but we also came to the conclusion that we would rather be bad tripping than not tripping. and, and so I would tell myself that there was one trip that it was my least favorite trip because I kept rubber banding between current, like being here and now, and ancient Egypt. And I couldn't stay in either place long enough to get settled. And I just kept going back and forth between ancient Egypt and here. And it was very unsettling and very terrible. And the bear, said, but remember, we'd rather be bad tripping than not tripping. So you just have to go with it. And so I just had to zigzag back and forth, for a few hours between here and Egypt. But having little mantras like that, and also constantly knowing that this is just a trip. This is going to end, and I'll be glad when it ends. But mushrooms are so, they're hard to come by. And so I don't want to waste them. And I don't want to say that was a bad trip. I wish I hadn't done that, because that's mushrooms that we'll never get back. So yes, the mantra of I'd rather be bad tripping than not tripping was what held both of us, I think, because there were times that he was in the throes of a bad trip too. And we would just remind each other, that mantra, and it got us through. Also, drinking water. You have to stay hydrated.
So basically what I'm getting is you hadn't taken anything. You had been very abstinent as far as substance use went up until around 40 years old. And then you had a trip. It was really good. And so you had successive trips. Sounds like quite a few. Mm-hmm. And did that phase end? Did you end up subsiding from mushroom use? Are you still fairly active in it?
Well, the only reason why it subsided was because we ran out. And, we were buying a large quantity at a time, so that, like wholesale, so that we wouldn't run out. And then eventually we ran out, and no one in our area could locate them for us. I was convinced that we had eaten every mushroom in the state of Tennessee. But yeah, so we did not make the choice. I did not actively choose for the mushroom experience to end. It just ended because we ran out. And so I look forward to restocking so that I can resume those experiences.
This episode was produced by me, Philip Johnson. All songs used can be found in the description section of this episode. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you're interested in supporting the show, if you have a story to share, or if you'd just like to write in, you can do all of this at psychotropicpodcast.com. If you're interested in getting a sneak peek of upcoming episodes, be sure to follow Psychotropic on Instagram at Psychotropic Podcast, all one word. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time.